Get into our first session of the day that is all about global dignity. And yesterday, Crown Prince Haakon of Norway and Crown Princess Mette-Marit, they visited the Zürich International School together with Professor Pekka Himanen, the co-founder of Global Dignity, and about 30 of our One Young World delegates. You may remember Kate saying, those of you who are going to the schools, please leave now. They were greeted by the principal of the school, and Prince Haakon addressed the kids, telling them about global dignity, which is basically a dignifying world provides everyone with equal opportunities in life, and people need dignity to lead a human life. And he talked about one of his trips to Africa where he'd met a young lady who had HIV, and instead of being sort of depressed and angry about it, she decided to get all the women in her community together and talk to them about HIV, her feelings, and their experiences. And she had such a huge impact on him because she basically managed to do so much with so little and almost no resources. He sort of said, imagine what we could do if we used all the resources we have. So that's one of the backdrops to global dignity. There were 500 kids at the Zürich International School who broke down into groups. Each was taught about dignity by one of the One Young World delegates, and then they all reconvened, and about 40 of the kids got on stage, one after the other, talking about their personal interpretation and experience with dignity. Haakon's approach is very much that we can actually learn from the kids, which is why he does these sessions around the world. And here to tell you more about global dignity, please welcome Pekka Himanen and Crown Prince Haakon of Norway.
Good morning, everyone. Did you get a good night's sleep? Not really, huh? First, I just wanted to thank the 30 delegates that came with us to the school yesterday. We really threw them into this. We did a 40-minute briefing, and then they went into the classrooms, and they were fantastic. I thought they were actually going to double up, but it turned out that there were one person per classroom. So they really dived into it and did a fantastic job. So why don't we give them a great applause for that, because that was really quite impressive. So thank you for joining us for that session. A few years back, I was traveling in Guatemala, and I had a meeting with one of the farming leaders from one of the rural areas called Mateo. And Mateo said that his village during the conflict was completely destroyed. They destroyed the land, the houses, a lot of people were killed. It was really, really difficult to regain confidence in the future. So there was a project that he talked about, where the World Bank and UNDP and others came together to restore the agricultural sector in Guatemala. And they also came to Mateo's village. And he said it worked really well, and he told us matter-of-factly about how they redid the fields, how they were able to start diversifying their crops and getting more out of their land so that they could sell it and get a little bit more income and slowly, step by step, create a better future. So he was quite calm, and he told me about all of this. But the moment when he became emotional, when a tear came to his eye, was when he said at the end, for us, this is about life, livelihood, security, and a chance to live a dignified life. To me, that was a really powerful statement, because it's not only to have your basic needs met, but it's also an emotional part of it. And that's what Mateo taught me. So a few years back, we were in Zermatt, kind of like this. We were young people, under 40 this time, so not as young. But we were gathered together by the World Economic Forum, this group of people called Young Global Leaders. And there were around 150 of us. And we were discussing the big issues of our time: health, education, environment, climate change, security, poverty alleviation, development. So we were divided up in groups, and people were, brilliant as they are, really focused on identifying the challenges, making action plans, timetables. A lot was discussed, a lot was planned, and a lot would be done. But after 2 days, some of us started talking about, sure, this is all great. But one question is, why do we want to do all this? Why do we care about people that are far away from us, that we will never even meet? Why are we doing all this? And the second question was, do we have something in common as a group or as human beings? Is there something at the core that we can build on? What is our direction, our ethical compass? So especially Pekka and John Bryant, who is an NGO leader from the US, and myself, we started discussing this together with a lot of other people. But we came up with this one word that to us described the core of what we were talking about. And that word was dignity. So we decided to make something around that. We wanted to not only talk about values and say that it's important, but we wanted to do something that could really instill values in a new way. So we wanted to reach out to children, kids around the world. So we've started to go into schools. We've now reached around, I guess we've done it in about 40 countries, in very different scale though. And it's a 2-hour course where the kids are challenged to think about dignity, but it's really about them coming up with their own stories about what they think is important. And that's what we did yesterday here in Zürich. So this global conversation that we want to have on dignity, we want to bring you in as part of that today. Each year, 20th of October, we do Global Dignity Day. So last year we had, 25, 30 countries around the world where people were going into schools and doing these courses on dignity. And it's really inspiring to get all the feedback from the kids because they have so much to offer and so many interesting ideas to share with their other peers and also experiences. Like in South Africa, a few years back when we were doing a Dignity Day there, a girl stood up and in front of all her peers at her school, she said that during the time, I guess this was 2009, when there were gangs going around and beating up immigrants in South Africa, she stood up in front of a large audience, not in the best part of the Cape Town area, and she said that her aunt took in 8 immigrants in her house and let them stay there for as long as the situation was dangerous. And that way she could care for their security, and that was her story of dignity. Now in the context, that was a very courageous thing to do, because for all I know, there were people in that school that were also part of that gang culture. So really courageous and interesting stories come up. We're going to ask, I talked to 5 of you who were at the school yesterday, so I would like you to come up afterwards when Pekka is done as well, to share some of your stories. So we'll have 5 stories from the delegates afterwards. Before we show a short video, I just wanted to ask you to bring up a piece of paper and a pen. Now, I want you to write down 2 things. This is what we do with the kids in the schools at the end of the session, right? I want you to write down 1, what you're for. It's not allowed to be against. You have to be in favor for something, all right? And the second thing I want you to write down is what you want to do in concrete terms the next year to strengthen someone else's dignity. What you want to do the next year in concrete terms to strengthen someone else's dignity. Because in my mind, you are all leaders. People look up to you, people follow you. You influence the people around you. How are you going to use that leadership? That's a question that we ask ourselves throughout life after we become, I guess, to a certain age, where we're mature enough to ask ourselves that question. It's a question that's important to continue asking yourself. How do you want to influence the people around you? And remember, it's okay with the small things. I don't think we're talking about changing the world all the time here. Yes, that's what we're going to do. You're all doing that already. But don't underestimate the small things. The pat on the shoulder, giving the hand up when someone needs it, supporting a friend, just doing good to other people around you. Right, so with those few words, I would like to just show you a video about global dignity. So it's a 2-hour course. We go into the school. We tell the students a little bit about what's going to happen. They're usually around 15 years old. Depends a bit. And then they go into individual classrooms. And we have a system there where they get to tell their stories a few times. Then we pick out the best stories. Each facilitator does that, and they come back and they tell their stories to all their peers. And that's when the magic happens. So if we can show the video.
Dignity. It starts from small people, person to person, until later to the whole world. We should help each other. No one knows everything. Some people don't know dignity. Maybe you know something you don't. You help him, you shall equalize. There's no war. Everybody is equal. Everybody was created equal. But all of us, we are as equal as we are. We are growing in body, but still, you should respect your friend. Whether he's small, whether he's big. Thank you.
Hvis dere har lyst, så kan dere jo skrive ned en sånn hjemme også. Og så kan dere for eksempel ha den der hvor dere sitter og jobber, eller enda bedre, i taket over senga. Sånn at når dere legger dere på kvelden, så er det siste dere ser er målet deres. Og det første dere ser på morgenen er også hva dere har lyst til å gjøre det neste året for å øke noen andre menneskers verdighet.
And we must not be afraid. As you're going towards achieving what you want to achieve, even if it means getting the best grades in school, there's going to be sacrifices you're going to have to make.
You are all very talented people. The question is that how will you use your full potential in ways that increase also the dignity of others? Or someone else that you know, a friend or someone?
Say it like you mean it. How you gonna leave? Love. Say it like you mean it. How you gonna leave? Love. I love you too.
It shows like when somebody has the opportunity to have fun and enjoy.
Yeah. Allowing someone to have an education, that increases their dignity.
A dignified life means an opportunity to fulfill one's potential.
Well done. So, we're going to have some of you come up here and tell your dignity stories.
I promised to myself to have my grandfather as a role model who was loving to everyone and helped everyone.
Duit orang tua gitu, tapi ya di situ aku aktif sih di sekolahan, tapi gimana ya, namanya temen, jujur aja itu uang SPP tuh aku pakai bukan buat aku, tapi buat bayaran anak kelas 3 juga, buat ujian, ya aku kasih seperti itu. Jadi martabat aku teh hilang buat kakak-kakak itu, sedangkan mereka juga nggak tahu. Sekarang aku jangan dibodohin gitu. Jadi intinya kalian semua tuh jangan pernah nganggep sahabat itu baik semuanya, jangan pernah lihat dari sampulnya aja.
Min historie startet derfor med hvor mye dumt jeg har gjort, fordi jeg var en klovn som trengte oppmerksomhet.
Føles som om
sitter på den bratteste karusellen, og du bare må klare deg selv om du ikke har lyst. Men jeg kan med god samvittighet si at etter at du har gjort det her, så det en helt fantastisk følelse.
International dignitaries, Norwegian royalty and young global leaders from the World Economic Forum descended on a small school in Grassy Park just outside Cape Town, all this in aid of the Dignity Day in South Africa.
Hoy es el Día Mundial de la Dignidad.
Dagen blir nå arrangert I 40 land over hele verden.
Everybody in here can change the world. You are going to make a difference in the world.
Jag husker den dagen efteråt så mer fordi jag var så glad för att jag fick upp på skolan.
Let me just say a few words about Pekka. Pekka Himanen, he is a philosopher. He finished his PhD when he was 21. Sometimes people ask him, how were you able to finish your PhD at 21 when you finished high school at the normal age? And sometimes, modest as he says, well, it's pretty easy. You do the master's the first year, and then you do the PhD the second year. He's just released his 14th book, and he's 37 years old. Please welcome Pekka Himanen, co-founder of Global Dignity.
Don't we have a great crown prince here? He's both down to earth and a cool prince. We actually call him the people's prince because of that spirit that he's showing. Yesterday we already saw what a great group of people you are. We had 30 delegates from here, and with just a very short introduction, ready to throw themselves in to classrooms at the school. And I can tell that that's a very great spirit that you have, because we've been going to schools with the world's leaders, leaders of the biggest companies in the world and the leaders of countries. And I can tell that there's nothing more scary for these world leaders than to go to speak to a 14-year-old student. So one more round of applause to our delegates from yesterday. Dignity means that we all are valuable people. So dignity means that you are a valuable person, and you have to first see that fact, your own worth as a human being. And this is where we start from when we go to speak with people in the schools or anywhere else. It means that you have to trust yourself, you have to believe in yourself, see your full potential, and not give in any moment for fear. This is probably one of the biggest things in life, a never-ending battle that you will have against yourself, as long as you are attacking yourself kind of as an opponent, before you see that you are really valuable and a worthy person and not giving in any moments for fear. And I remember one moment that was a bit funny related to that. We were talking about not fearing and courage with 8-year-olds. And then one 8-year-old boy said that he has a question that has bothered him for a long time. And then this 8-year-old boy asked from me a question that had bothered him for a long time. This 8-year-old
boy asked that, what do you have to do if in the future you happen to see the woman of your life walking on the street? Do you have to shout, stop? And I was advising a little bit more nuanced approach, but later I was thinking that there might be some idea here though. Another time we were talking with 12-year-olds and how do you show dignity to others? Because once you are able to see that you are a valuable person, you have to see that everyone else is like you, that you have to recognize that same worth and value in everyone else in the world. And we were talking with 12-year-olds, and then one 12-year-old girl said suddenly that she also has an example of what dignity means. And then this 12-year-old girl gave the following very strong example that really made a lasting impact and is still in my heart. She said that 2 years earlier, her own grandmother had been dying. And then she said that for the last days of her grandmother's life, she had been sitting next to her on her bedside, holding her hand and talking to her. And if you think about this image of a 10-year-old girl sitting by her grandmother's side, holding her hand, and that some of the last words that the grandmother hears in her whole life are her granddaughter's words, "I love you, Granny." It's hard to think of a stronger image of dignity. And what I was thinking then was that if this 10-year-old girl was able to show such dignity to other people, how do we, who have even more things already in life, more opportunities in life, show this dignity to this 10-year-old girl or other people in general? So if she was able to do that, how are you going to show that same kind of dignity? Well, Haakko mentioned something about my background in philosophy, but for me personally, the biggest teaching came from my own grandmother, who never got any education. She was born into a very different kind of country where I was born. Finland was then a very poor country. Actually, hunger was still a problem in Finland. And of the 8 children of the family, 3 didn't survive childhood. So she had to leave home at the age of 16 to work hard to make a living. And she started to work as a cleaning lady, which she was for the rest of her life. And often she did 2 shifts at the same time, on the same day. And one thing that she told me many times that was very meaningful to her and really has influenced me in thinking about what's important to remember for us was that when she was a cleaning lady, daytime on a construction site, and then in the evening time in the government palace. Once she was late in the evening cleaning the Prime Minister's office, when suddenly the Prime Minister came back to his office, and she was really nervous, she told, because she felt that she is just a cleaning lady and there is the political leader of the country. But what the Prime Minister said to her made a lasting impression on her. The Prime Minister said to my grandmother was that, "I'm sorry that I interrupt your work like this. It's people like you who put their whole heart in their work and in their family that has created this country what it is." And even if these were simple words, it meant a lot for my grandmother because it answered to the universal human dream that we all share, regardless of our religion or political view or anything else, people are the same everywhere in the world in this one thing that unites us, that we all have the dream that I have the dream that my dignity as a human being is recognized. And what happens if it's not recognized? It's one of the saddest fates and tragedy stories in life if this basic longing doesn't become answered. But what happens also if it becomes answered? If you are able to show that dignity to someone else, kind of lighten up someone else's life, the spark in that other person. Even magical things can start to happen. And for my grandmother, this was an important moment because she felt that these simple words were actually recognizing her dream, that I have a dream that my dignity as a human being is recognized. And for me, she was a big role model of dignity. She was dignity incarnated, living dignity. She didn't have any material resources, but she had what I call dignity as real wealth. Dignity is real wealth, your inner wealth. And I remember, she's not with us anymore, but I remember how she used to save the whole week just for the moment when I visited her with my brother, just so that she could take us to a cafe to offer us some lemonade. And I must say, if I'm honest, I'm not so big fan of lemonade, but there's something very beautiful about what a human being can give to another person, and that's what we really ultimately value in each other. This is a room full of really talented people. We know you are really talented already because you have been chosen to be here. We've heard from you. I think it's very important for everyone to think, what is your example of dignity that is meaningful for you and what you are going to do about it. And because we have such a great group of people here, let's, and we are talking about courage, let's do one very simple thing. Let's use 2 minutes so that find someone next to you and share your story of dignity with that person so that both will have time for that. We'll use about 2 minutes for this courageous act of dialogue. So find someone, and if you don't know from before, tell something also about you. Okay, so let's use 2 minutes for this. Find someone next to you to share your story of dignity. Call the first one? You just call all of them. Okay, I'll call. Do I do it or you want? Okay, all right. This looks very good. This sounds very good, this interaction that started here immediately. So it sounds very good, this dialogue that started here immediately. I should have remembered that I'm suggesting this to some of the most passionate people on our planet, so this gets out of control immediately. But I hope that this special spirit that is here at the One Young World, this dialogue can continue also after this session and throughout all these days and later too, because this is a very special spirit that exists here, that people feel that you can just start sharing, for example, your story of dignity, the spirit that Kate and David have greatly created. We want to hear 5 stories from you, and I'll ask Pedro, Felipe, Irina, Sivia, and Kotkeho to come and give a brief sharing of your personal dignity story. Please, let's give a round of applause. Yes. Yep, you probably need this. Okay, hello. Okay, great to see you.
Do you want to start? Sure. Why don't you? Oh, okay, we have a microphone. Why don't you say your name, and then where you're from, and then just do the story. Okay.
Hi everybody, I'm Felipe, I'm a delegate from Peru, but I'm currently living and working in Colombia. I work for Professor Muhammad Yunus on eradicating poverty and implementing and using social business. And some weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit a rural poor family in Colombia, and I stayed to live with them for a day. And they lived in a very, very small house, 18 square meters, 8 of them living there, 1 bubble light, the bathroom had no door. And I felt it was very undignified for them. So after having dinner with them, I take the father out of the house and I ask him, Jairo, what do you need to be happy? What do you need to feel fulfilled in your life? And he looks to me in the eyes and he tells me, Felipe, I am a happy guy. I am fulfilled. I am amazed by the dignity of this guy and his family. And I ask him, why? And he tells me, I have a wife, I have a family. Thank God I have enough food to feed my kids. I can send them to school right next door. I don't have a luxury house. I don't have a lot of income, but I have what I need in life. So by understanding and feeling the power of dignity of this man and his family, I learned that usually poor people or people living in poverty understand important things in life better than us. So I just want to say that if we learn how to listen, to see, and to feel, we can lead. And if we really listen, really see, and really feel, we can end poverty, and we can put poverty into museums. So
wow.
That's the way.
Great story.
Hi, my name is Irina. I'm from Romania. My dignity story is quite recent. I am a volunteer for an NGO in Romania, and we went to prison to promote reintegration in society to felons convicted for fraud and theft. And it was around Christmas last year. And the first thing that struck us when we entered was the fact that they were smiling. They were so happy to see us there. And half an hour after I started talking to them, I learned why they were so happy. They thanked us for just changing their lives the minute we walked in. They realized they actually have a chance to go back to society and to make their children proud. They thanked us for looking at them not like monsters, not being afraid, for treating them like human beings with rights, with intelligence, human beings that had amazing stories. They were very talented at writing children's stories, and they swear that they will never be back to prison, and that would be thanks to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pedro Pisano. I come from Colombia, and I work at a human rights NGO in New York. And I could tell you what I do every day. I spend my time working to release political prisoners in Venezuela, or raising awareness in Korea, or gay rights in Uganda, or things that are happening in Belarus. I do that every day, but I want to tell you another story. I want to tell you how I recognize dignity for me. When I was very young, I grew up in Colombia, and there's a lot of beggars in the street corners. Every street light, very young kids come up to you, and they ask you for money. And I lived a very privileged life, and I would ride around my cars, and we lived in a bubble. And I didn't feel I was living a good life. I felt torture about this. I couldn't do anything. So I decided, with my brother, to put together food packs. And we would go to every single corner in our car, lower down the windows, and what was more important, we asked each of them for their names, and we talked to them. What were the feelings? And that day, when we started doing that and acting, I recognized that my dignity depended on the dignity of everyone who was around me on that day.
That's a really great story. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ketelo Olu, a delegate from South Africa. I grew up in a rural part of South Africa where most of the people are uneducated. From my municipality, it's about 2% of the people who have matric, and it's less than 1% of the people who went to a tertiary education. But growing at that kind of environment, Ketelo has managed to go to a university, and now he's studying at University of Cape Town doing his master's degree in medical science. Therefore, it means growing underprivileged doesn't necessarily mean that it will determine your future, but it's about the opportunities that you can create for yourself. So what I'm currently doing now to help there from my community, I am going to high schools and then trying to help there and talk to young people, do some sort of a career guidance so that they can know that there is something they can do after their matric. Because I believe that you have to create a platform where young people realize their own potentials. Because if you realize your own potential, then you can do other things. By realizing your potential, you have to discover your purpose and destroy the failure. These words I quote them from Michael Mwendane, where he says, destroy your failure and discover your own purpose. And then there is a life before the storm. There is a life during a storm. There will be a life even after the storm. So with that, there will be a dignified world where everybody will believe that we are the same. Nobody is better than another one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Sylvia, and I'm coming from Romania. Now, my story about dignity is related to, let's say, the good use of your freedom. Now, the first thing that came into my mind was an experience that I've lived for most of my life. And I've lived near an example of dignity, and that was my mother. Now, I'm coming from Romania, as I said, and this is a post-communist country. As you know, the education is not very rewarded financially there still. There are still chances. So my mother was a teacher, and she had the choice to use her freedom and to use her talent to make a difference in some people's lives, and these were her students. So instead of walking away, she stayed there and she treated them as she treated me. Now, I was her child, and she was telling me, yeah, my daughter. But then again, I always knew, and I saw that she had 30 other people in the classroom that were also her children. And she was spending with them as much time as she was spending with me, and she was giving to them the same amount of love that she gave to me. And I didn't understand where did she find the power to do that, and where did she have this courage to go on and to continue. And at some point, I understood that this came from the heart, from inside, because no money in the world can describe and can measure the smile of a happy child. No money in the world can measure a tear of happiness. No money in the world can teach you how to share your soul, how to give a bit of yourself and see that bit of yourself being carried on by your students. Yeah, so thank you.
Yes, wow, what impressive stories. So I'll just mention here that, so remember that dignity is the heart of ethics. Remember to live with your heart. And ultimately remember that this dignity as caring is expressed through your acts. So there's a very wise saying in philosophy about ethics that you should, in a way, see the world as if through the eyes of a deaf person. You don't listen to what people explain and what kind of excuses they tell you. You just look at what they do, because that ultimately tells your real character, your real person, and your real ethics. So show your dignity in action, in the spirit that Gandhi summarized this way, that in this action, first they will ignore you, then they will laugh at you, then they will resist you, and then you have already won. Because you must be the change you wish to see in the world. Thank you.
Okay, if any of you would like to be part of Global Dignity, we have sign-up sheets at the back. So just give your name and email and country. It'd be great to have you on the team. So thank you very much for your attention and good luck with all the great stuff you're going to do in the future. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.